All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our afternoon keynote speaker. I'm thrilled to say that we're joined today by an international expert in water quality monitoring. We have Kavanagh here from the Water Rangers program that's based in Canada. And Kat actually started as a web and game designer. Then inspiration and need struck. She was frustrated after testing on her local lake, only to find complicated lab reports and a filing cabinet full of results. Finding no easy and user-friendly way to collect and share data, Kat combined her love for user experience design and for the environment to lead a team of other technologists to create the first Water Rangers prototype as part of the aqua hacking competition in 2015. And after winning aqua hacking, the Water Rangers was transformed into a social enterprise nonprofit that focuses on helping people grow their water testing capacity. Kat earned her master's degree in integrated water resource management from McGill University and now combines her passion for both design and water to create better ways for communities to test their waterways. She's developed Water Rangers water quality test kits and open data platform designed to empower communities to crowdsource water quality data, including using machine learning to improve test accuracy. Together with her talented team, they're supporting water testers in Canada, the US, and worldwide. Kat is also the Canadian co-chair of the Smart Great Lakes Science and Innovation Committee, a member of the Canadian Freshwater Alliance Steering Committee, and on the board of Watersheds Canada. Now, I've had the pleasure of meeting Kat a few times over the course of our careers at different water monitoring and citizen science conferences, and I can tell you that she has a great energy, enthusiasm for this kind of work and the kind of work that you're all involved with as participants or supporters of the MiCorps volunteer lake and stream monitoring programs. So with that, I'd love to hand it over to Kat. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Can you just let me know if you can see my screen okay?
Looks great, Kat. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. All right, so as Joe mentioned, we met a few times at some various conferences, and I've always admired the work that's happening in Michigan. And so I'm really, really pleased to be here today to talk a little bit about what we're doing. But I really wanted to look at the bigger picture of how collaboration is such a powerful tool to make change for water and to hopefully inspire you that you're part of a movement that's not just for your beautiful state, but also part of that movement just north of the border, as well as around the world. So I will... Today, I'm just going to briefly talk about the Water Rangers story and tell you a little bit about what we do. We probably won't really get too much into that because you already have a fantastic program there. But as you can see, a lot of the same principles apply. The things that you're doing obviously are translating into different landscapes as well. And then I want to really focus on the power of working together and some stories around how that really makes a difference, especially for Canada. And then I want to talk a little bit about prompting action. So as Joe mentioned, the start of Water Rangers happened, probably sounds similar to some of your stories. You live near a water body or you care deeply about a water body that is near you. And the same is for me. I grew up at a lake in Val-des-Monts, and in Val-des-Monts is just north of Ottawa on the Quebec side. It's an area that has about 1,000 lakes. They're very, very beautiful, and we want to keep them that way. And so my own father got involved in water quality monitoring about 20 years ago. And when he did, he knew that it was important to monitor water quality. Our lakes are healthy right now, and we need to know if anything has changed. But what happened was he had no sort of understanding of what the results meant. We have an amazing organization nearby that does do reports for the region, but oftentimes it's 5 or 6 months later. And so the people that are at that lake during the summer were all wondering, well, are my results good or bad? What do they mean? Should we be doing anything? So there's lots of questions, and that's sort of where the idea for what I started to do was. But the first thing I did was like, okay, does anything like this exist? Because I'm really a big believer, and you'll see that with the collaboration. If there's already someone doing that, how can I use my skills to make that effort more powerful? And after I didn't really find anything in Canada that existed, I sort of decided that I would use my web skills. And this is the very first version of Water Rangers. I said, what would I like to know? And that really is a very strong and passionate part of what I do, is how do we answer those questions that people have about the water bodies they care about? So you can see here, first version was not a technology one. And oftentimes when we're coming up with ideas, paper is the best way to do that. And so this is the first version, the paper prototype of Water Rangers. And the need for water monitoring is great. So this is an interesting map, and I'm just going to draw your attention. This is Canada. The amount of gray on this map. So WWF put together this watershed reports for Canada, and the gray ones are showing where we're data deficient. That means we don't even have enough information to give a health assessment. Now, as a country of water, that's pretty awful. You know, as Canadians, we're obviously not as densely populated. There really is a need for a coordinated effort to collect water quality samples. Now, the problem in Canada is that government funding for water monitoring has been steadily declining. But luckily, community-based water monitoring groups are growing exponentially. So a lot of times it's actually the community groups, the people like you, that are starting to fill these gaps. And what we found from our research is that there is a lot of desire in the community, like people like my father. They care about the water body they're near, but oftentimes they don't have the tools, they don't have the technical skills, they don't have the support of a university like you do to collect the data and put it to use for effective decision making. So looking at this map, we can see that there's a lot of work to be done. Now, WWF put together this first report in 2017, and I was at the launch of it. We had our Prime Minister come, and he said, this is really important work. And I've been part of these groups that are trying to turn those gray areas into a color. And then hopefully we can also help make those watersheds healthy as well. So, you know, sometimes the first step is collecting the data, know where the problems are so that you can address them. So they released a second version of this in 2020, and quite a lot of the data that had been added since then was contributed by community groups. And Jo actually shared an article with me, and I hope she's going to present more about it. But she showed in a study of some states that quite a majority, so more than 50% of the data, the long-term monitoring data in some of these states was collected by community groups. So I think you all should be really proud of being basically the people that are collecting this important data, but we really need to do better at it. So this is me and my co-director, that's Gabby, and Gabby's obsessed with recreational water, so beach monitoring. And together we're trying to make sure that we can be really effective with the monitoring that we're doing to make sure that it makes an impact. And we use things like we're looking at machine learning to read colors. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about another project that we're working on. So the basic thing that we do is we help people with tools to collect, input, and then share their data. So the first step for us is our water test kits. And these are meant to be sort of self-contained. So they are easy to use, accurate, and affordable. And we only do tests where you get the results right away in the field. So we can't do tests for everything, but especially for the Canadian landscape, sometimes you don't have access to a lab. So we need to be able to provide an experience where you can actually collect some valuable baseline data without a lab. And we also allow groups to take ownership of their water monitoring. So they put their logo on it, and it's a really big community fun thing to do for both our lake monitors as well as our youth. And it's really a lot of fun. And I'm quite obsessed with designing the experience of that. And then we work with research partners to look at the legitimacy and the accuracy of those tests that we do. So these are a few of our partners. And here we are out in the field. That's on a white lake with Watersheds Canada and a chemist, and looking at the accuracy of some of our tests. And then we created a data platform. And as you can see, there's a few little pockets in the US, but we're mostly in Canada. And the idea is we allow groups to be able to manage their volunteers and manage the data that they're collecting. And then, I put in an American group that are just fantastic. The Mississippi Water Stewards are doing some monitoring and putting their data, and they use it for their volunteers. And then each of the locations is sort of designed to be, I hope, easy for the average person to, at a glance, see what the results are. We create these little spark charts, add photos, really trying to make it fun for groups and easy for the average citizen to understand. And then we've created apps that help us work offline. So then the final step is to share, and we work with partners. One of our biggest partners is DataStream. So we allow groups to automatically share with other platforms. DataStream brings all types of water quality data together. So not just community data, but also government and researchers, so that it can be used in decision making. So as you can see, we've been working with quite a lot of people. We are mostly in Canada, but we have some testers in Mexico, in Brazil, in the UK, and we're growing really fast. It's really fun. But right now, I really want to talk about these 4 themes of being stronger together. And so I wanted to use these as examples to hopefully inspire you and to think about your own ways that you can work with local groups. Already you're part of such an amazing collaborative space here. And I think that it would be great for you to see how we're doing that in Canada. So the first theme is exploring new theories and approaches. So I have an example. It's quite close to my heart. When people are water testing, they really want to know, especially if they're new to water monitoring, are my results good or bad? And sometimes we say, well, it depends. It depends on where you are. It depends on the historical trends at that location. It depends on a lot of things. But let me get back to you, or we need to finish the study and we'll have that out in a year is not helpful for a lot of people. So I'm like, oh, maybe there is a way that we can answer some of those questions. And as part of the work I did at McGill, I helped develop this model that gives a health score prediction. And this is a theoretical model, and I'll tell you about where we're at with it right now. But basically, we wondered if we could lean really heavily on existing data. So the seasonality of that water body, how much water flow there was, the soil in the water body makes a huge difference if it's clay or not, as well as the rock bed. All these bedrock, sorry, that's a typo. it changes what the natural conductivity of that water body might be. So the model then takes in human influences and then gives you a score. And the whole idea of this was like, how can we answer that question? How can we say, are my results good or bad? So that was the theory. And then we did some research on how people responded to the different types of interfaces. So the first one you can see here on the left is a sort of traditional. This is pretty close to what we have on our website right now. It's a trend line. It shows the average, which people really did enjoy. They really liked being able to see a trend line. And then the second example there in the middle is that health prediction. And then the third one was, we don't have enough data yet to tell you if the results are good or bad. Now, overwhelmingly, people wanted to see both the trend line and the health score. And I think that that makes sense to a lot of us. We want to know, is this very different from usual, as well as, are my results good or bad? Really nicely to combine those things. But what we weren't expecting from that research was how motivated people were by that third experience, knowing that there was a need, that they were surprised that there wasn't enough data. And this was really interesting to us. A lot of people actually think that we have enough data on water bodies to be able to tell if they're healthy or not. And really embracing that fact that people understand that there's a need for water monitoring is huge. So the results from this study really showed that we had an opportunity to show how to make people care. So the next step. So I told you about my theoretical model that predicts water quality, but it was a theory. I tested it in a very small region and it seemed to work pretty well. It really leaned heavily on existing water quality data, but it really tried to give people that experience of, are my results good or bad, based on not just their input, but also a huge body of information that existed before. So I started talking with a researcher named Carrie Finley, and she's based out of Saskatchewan. And if you don't know where Saskatchewan is, it's in the middle of the country. It's the prairies, and she studies dugouts. So these are the ponds that are created for agriculture regions. And she's very interested in community-based water monitoring too. And we started talking about how it would be great to get a huge community of community-based water monitors in Saskatchewan. And then I started telling her about my model that I would love to, move forward. And she said, I think that this is a great research project, but we wanted to build a holistic research project. And we co-wrote an application for a 5-year study. We did our first year this year. And the excitement in Saskatchewan has been incredible. It's been featured on the news multiple times. We have volunteers all over the province testing. And you know what they're really proud of? Usually, the prairies get a really bad rap for taking care of their water. And now they're becoming this, I guess, spokesperson of a province that is starting to do the things that need to happen to fill those data gaps and really start to take care of their water. So stay tuned about how well the model is going to work. We're going to be testing it in the Canada Shield landscape, in the Great Lakes landscape, in the prairie landscape, and on the West Coast. So I think if it works, I'm going to talk to Joe and maybe we can do something, but it is a couple years away. But in the meantime, what a great example about a holistic program where we really work together. All right. The second theme is advocating for policy change. And this is really interesting. And I think, in the political landscape, there's times when we advocate for water protection, and there's times where it's more difficult. And, right now, I don't know how many of you have ever done any advocating for prioritization of funding for waterways. I didn't know how to do it. We're a really small organization, and there's organizations across Canada, and a lot of times the working with the government to try and get that priority on it, it's on the side of your desk. It doesn't get prioritized because you already have a million other things to do. So we became part of this community-based water monitoring collaborative. And last year we had an election, and as part of it, in the lead of it, they're talking about a Canada Water Agency. So we don't actually have a countrywide organization in government that focuses on water. It's sort of spread out in all different departments, and usually it's the provinces that are dealing with water. But having that sort of coordinated effort at the federal level became really important. And so this group came together and recommended 4 big things. So there's hundreds of things that they can do, but we said, okay, this group of, I think that there's 92 members of this collaborative of water testing organizations. We said, these are the 4 things that we think that the government can do, and we're willing to help you. And that was really well received. You know, it was a very collaborative effort. And we brought in our academic partners to co-sign on it. I didn't think we had 92 people signing on it, but we had quite a few people, groups signing on it, as well as the academics. And then we actually had the opportunity to present that information to someone. And I think that that's really cool. So probably not following Canadian politics that much, but we had a snap election in September, October. And as part of it, one of the campaign promises was $1 billion for freshwater protection. And what we heard from our friends as part of this, so what can we do now? Now that the government's been reformed, we have this promise. They said, keep making a splash. So sometimes decision-making takes time, but the fact that we worked together and we had that voice that we worked together, we're getting some traction and we're getting promises like that. I think that that's pretty motivating. And then the last part of that advocacy work that we did, there was a little bit of a fund to do some research on a business case for community-based water monitoring. It's been prepared by the think tank, International Institute for Sustainable Development, and they are also the people that run the experimental lakes. And if you haven't heard of the experimental lakes, you need to look them up. They're really cool. It's there are a whole bunch of lakes in Northern Ontario where they do full-scale, multi-year experiments on. Really, really fascinating stuff. But if you would like to come to this lunch and learn, I have some details there for you. We've tweeted it out on our Twitter as well. But basically, the study shows that any dollar that is invested in community-based water monitoring is multiplied. So when you get an investment in it, it can be it doubles the value in money. So that's not even the community benefits. This is the financial benefits only. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to just share this with you. And if you'd like to go is, when you're grant writing or when you're looking for funding, being able to quote that this funding that you're going for is going to multiply in value for your community. I think that that's really powerful. So creating those resources together so that we can grow the movement together. All right. So the next part is a little case study on building partnerships that make us stronger. And I mentioned briefly data stream. So data stream, is that data repository. So it's a place where you can go and access information from lots of different sources, and it's specifically focused on water quality. They recently just launched their Great Lakes data stream, I think within the last month. And we've been working with them all year on bringing communities to them and working with them to make sure that the communities that are collecting this data have a platform to share it with decision makers. And it has been absolutely fantastic working with them. So, you know, a lot of times we're small organizations and we're always feeling overstretched. But sometimes it's really good if we can focus in on what we're really good at. And for us, we really like creating those tools for communities to get started with their water monitoring when they don't have access to other resources. And DataStream has been integral to that, making that system so much better. So when people share their data on Water Rangers, the data sets also shared on DataStream automatically. And we champion each other. So I'm here today talking to you about DataStream because I care about what they're doing. I believe in what they're doing. And I think what they're doing is so important. So having that platform to amplify each other's impact has been wonderful. And honestly, we really like working together. And I think that we need to celebrate that sort of joy as well. All right. And then the final little thing, I think when we work together, we create opportunity for community action. So I picked one that I thought would be really interesting for you as a Great Lakes people. This year, we started a program called the Lake Erie Guardians. There wasn't that much community-based water monitoring in the Lake Erie watershed on the Canadian side. You know, there's some really great efforts on the US side. And actually, as part of setting up the Lake Erie Guardians, we've developed closer relationships to the people on the other side of the lake. So the Lake Erie Guardians was a partnership between the Freshwater Alliance and Water Rangers, but we also partnered with Niagara Coastal Collaborative, conservation authorities. DataStream was part of that sort of process as well. And then we worked with a Reforestation London. So what happened, and these are only a few of the partners that emerged, and this is during a year where we were in lockdown for a lot of it, and the stories that came out of the Lake Erie Guardians, people were looking for opportunities to go out and to do things and to make a difference for their lake. Now, Lake Erie gets a little bit of a bad rap, but I think it's really important to show that there's active communities collecting data and doing great work for it. All right. So just a few more things, you know, what happens when communities have hope again, you know? We worked with a group that was worried about a mine getting approved, and they didn't feel like that they could do anything. And so they started water monitoring, and they said, okay, we've got baseline data. We're doing something, and if things are approved, we'll be ready. You know, just having that opportunity to give some hope, to get those eyes on the ground, and to get the community involved. I don't know if it's as common in your communities, but there's sort of a lot of climate anxiety, like what are we going to do? You know, I don't know if you've seen the news with the floods on Vancouver, washing out all these highways. It gets really depressing really fast. But when we have these sort of examples of things that people can do, it really makes a difference. And part of, you know, I really love the science, and I think that that has to be so strong in community-based water monitoring. But I also really think it's very important that activated communities feel empowered. And, you know, we have examples of you know, the majority of people go and visit new places. They become adventurers around water. most of the people who are doing water monitoring with us, when they go to the water, a curious bystander will come by and ask what they're doing, and they feel that they can teach that other person. So creating that agency in our community members and getting them excited about it is great. And then this is just a really quick small example, Chris, about how these community groups become the eyes and ears on the ground when something goes wrong. So Chris was going for a walk, he was doing his water testing, and he noticed that there was this water coming out of some place where it doesn't usually come out. And he tested it, and it's like, that's not river water. He realized that it was a burst pipe. And he called the city, and they had it repaired within a few hours. So these opportunities to be the eyes and ears on the ground are so important. You know, we notice when things are going wrong, we can respond to them, and then we can make sure that we're making sure that things get better. All right. The last portion, I always want to try and leave a presentation with making sure that people, you know, find a space. And you are all water monitors, so I'm pretty sure that monitoring water quality is your action item. But oftentimes people are like, well, I don't know what to do. Maybe they're not quite ready to get involved in monitoring water quality, but taking those baby steps towards getting more people involved in water stewardship is so important. So finding the thing that they get excited about contributing to is really great. So there's a few ideas there: monitoring water quality, cleaning up shorelines, participating in a shoreline restoration project, sharing things on social media is a really good first step. Becoming a teacher, volunteering your time, and then putting your dollars where your beliefs are. So if you believe in water orgs, donate to them. They're always doing so much with so little. But I want to leave you with one thought, and I think that this is really important, and it's something that I believe in so strongly. If you're going to make a difference for water, I need you to go to the water, and I need you to go there often, and to bring your friends. We just had this article about one of the groups we're working with in BC, northern BC. And I think that headline is true. People protect what they love. So we need to get more people to waterways because there's so much work to do, and we can't do it by ourselves. So with that, let's protect water together around the world, and continue doing your great work.
Thank you so much, Kat, for giving us a interesting, exciting, and inspiring presentation with lots and lots to think about. And I'm glad that you left us a little time for questions too, because we've had some questions come in, but if you're still thinking about a question for Kat, please use the Q&A box to type that in during these last few minutes that we have her with us today. A question that did come in that's kind of a two-parter, and I think part of it is for you and maybe part of it is for me, Kat. But the first part is for you. Is the Water Rangers data platform available to monitors in the US?
Yes, so it is available to monitors in the US, but I did talk with Joe about this before, and I think it's really important that monitors in your program make sure that the data is being contributed directly where the program is based. But we did talk to some groups in Pennsylvania recently who are looking to get started with water monitoring. We have some groups in Florida, quite a few groups in Alabama and Mississippi. So really trying to fill that gap for the groups that don't have their own monitoring program. But maybe in the future there might be some space for Joe and I to figure out how to align our systems. But yeah, yes, it does. Short answer.
Thanks, Kat. And you actually segued really well into the other part of the question that you might guess was coming. Is MiCorps thinking about using Water Rangers to display data or do something similar? Right now, obviously, we want MiCorps data in the MiCorps system, as Kat said. That's the number one place it should be. But we're also exploring other platforms in which our database could connect. That includes the U.S. federal data sharing platform, WQX. We're digging into that possibility and also looking at for other partners where we could get that data, more available, more used. Obviously, the MiCorps Data Exchange is available to anyone who wants to look at it and use it. It's public data, but that doesn't mean people know it's there, especially people outside of Michigan. And so, I think there's definitely some opportunities for expanding beyond what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we sort of amplify each other's efforts. And I'm really glad that Joe and I talked about it before, just because it is really important that we don't duplicate in certain areas. And I think what I really want is to make sure that Water Rangers is useful and it's not making extra work for anybody. So from that point of view, I think that Joe is looking for sort of like inspiration, what other people are doing. And I'm sure that our data will sit alongside each other in a joint platform very soon, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, another question, a little different, more of a technical question. Asker is curious what the results were of your QA/QC for the samples that you compared between the SOND and doing lab analyses, and how well received are data with the limitation of not being able to use labs for your analyses?
Yeah, so I mean, our kit doesn't include anything that is done in a lab, but a lot of the groups do use lab tests alongside it. So especially, you guys aren't on the Shield, but on the Canada Shield, the phosphorus levels are so low. There is no way you could use a field test for it. You have to use a lab test. As far as the comparison goes, working with chemists and other conservation groups, our conductivity meter was very, very, very accurate, and we did like a long-term reproducibility. So that's how long it holds its calibration over time, and it was absolutely excellent. Some of the more color-based tests are a little bit less accurate. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking at machine learning to help read the colors, because there is a lot of difference in how we interpret colors. So really always looking to improve that accuracy.
Related to that, one of our volunteers asked, what parameters are you monitoring?
So we do dissolved oxygen, conductivity, temperature. We also do like air temperature. So we have a thermometer as well as the conductivity meter that does water temperature. We do pH, alkalinity, and hardness. And then we have a Secchi disc for water clarity.
Right.
We are looking for new tests. So if you have any hints, we're starting to do our next cycle of testing the field tests that are out there. The thing is a lot of them aren't very accurate. And so I don't want to give our volunteers any sort of tests where we're probably going to have to throw out the data. I don't think that that's fair. Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, switching to another section of your presentation, you talked about how to connect with folks in government and decision makers about what you're doing. And, many of us who have worked in the monitoring arena recognize that monitoring is kind of tough to get funding support for. It's not like a project that's like at the end of the year, you can show something that you've accomplished and the project's over. So do you have any tips that you would share as far as what you think might help build funder or decision maker support for long-term monitoring like the Water Rangers does?
Yeah, so I did mention the business case, which I'm so excited about. It doesn't even talk about the sort of internal results. So it doesn't talk about how it makes people feel or anything like that. It's actually just talking about, like, if you invest $100 into water monitoring, the economic benefits of it are depending on the program, 3-to-1, 10-to-1. So that investment it creates a return. And so sometimes you do have to use the language, of economics. And I think that's a really powerful thing. Now, I know that sometimes the storytelling for water quality monitoring can be really, as you said, a little bit difficult at the end of the year. What do you have to show for it? I think that there's a lot of stories that we should be telling about our volunteers, about how it's affected them and their community, and the changes that they've made because of it. So showing, okay, we did the testing, and here's our plan for action. So here's the restoration we did, or here's the community group that's going out constantly, and now they're bringing the local schools down, and those kids are having, in the field experiential moments that don't exist very much for our youth. So I don't know if that's the same in the US, but it's becoming less and less in Canada. So I think it's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Those are all really, really good ideas. And so, we're kind of at the end of our time here, but I appreciate everyone participating. Great turnout for Kat's presentation here. I've got a bunch of other specific things I want to talk to you about, Kat, but we'll do that another time.
Sure.
Especially as we mentioned earlier today, the MiCorps program is working on, overhauling our website, overhauling our user interface, and that kind of thing, to make it more useful and appealing for all the folks that we engage with. So the timing is really good. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me. And I hope I can come and visit you all soon.
We'd love that.
Maybe next summer.
That's right. All right. Well, logistics. We're wrapping up this session here, our afternoon keynote, and we're going to be moving into our breakout sessions, our next set of breakout sessions. So you have two choices now, and look at your agenda for the links to these. You can either attend Moving Forward with Innovation, a riparian's effort to improve our lakes, presented by Craig Keevy, one of our active volunteers, or Invertebrates to Know, the endangered Hungerford crawling water beetle and the invasive New Zealand mud snail, presented by a couple of guests, one from U.S. Fish and Wildlife and one from the Grass River Natural Area. As we've mentioned before, all of these sessions are being recorded. You'll be able to watch them again or share them from the MiCorps website in a few days. And we look forward to seeing you in the next breakout session. Thanks, everyone.